Cox Associates. Hi, sir.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Scott Wickham. I'm here to go over the results of the 2025 audit. Did you have you? And Josh, the hardbound reports are in the box for you over there as well. So if you have those, I don't plan to go through the full reports. I don't know if you have the reports in front of you. Hopefully, you have a chance to see them. But if not, I'm happy to take questions at the end or later from you all by email as well. So. Again, I'm Scott Wickham, partner in charge of the county's audit. I'm from Blacksburg office of the RFC accounting firm. Want to point out that this audit presentation does include the full audit, which also does include the school board, social services, Head Start, and all the pieces within. I don't present to those individuals as well. This kind of covers all of that, so hopefully they're watching. If not, they can send questions later as well. So, but with that, I'll move into the presentation. Kind of go over the overview of the audit. The first report that we issue is the independent auditor report. And this is the opinion on the financial statements. This speaks to the numbers in the report. So again, the county has received an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. It means the numbers are materially correct in the report. And so that's a credit to the staff for having those records and having those records available to help us propose adjustments to get them to be materially correct. So good, clean report, unmodified. It used to be unqualified, but now it's unmodified. Still a good, clean report. There's an additional paragraph in there this year related to implementation of GASB 101 for accrued leave or compensated absences. The new standard was required to be implemented, and so you all did implement that standard. The impact to you all is not any kind of operational changes. It does impact the liability recorded in your financial statements. The prior liability was based on what someone would be paid if they left, or if they were terminated, what they got paid out when they left, or when they retired, what they paid out when they left. The new calculation is that on top of expected time to be used. So we did expect a large increase. And for you all, for the county, it was about a $355,000 increase to the liability. For the schools, it's about a $1.3 million increase to the liability. And that's common among school systems. The teachers get a lot of time and they use a lot of time. So they don't usually get paid a lot. So that does change that calculation a little bit. But again, I want to reiterate, it does not change your operational impact. It just is an accounting change that you all are required to make and did make. So that is in there as well. Within the report, you have several functions of accounting. You have full accrual accounting and modified accrual accounting. Exhibit 1, which I'll go over some high numbers in a minute, is the statement of net position on the full accrual basis of accounting. That is big picture. So that includes all assets, long-term debt, includes everything that the county has, the schools as well. And then you have the Exhibit 3, which is the balance sheet, and that's of the county only. That zooms in on a modified accrual basis, so that's short-term basis. That's cash basis accounting plus short-term receivables plus short-term payables to give you fund balance. And that is kind of what you had to work with for your budgeting process. So much more zoomed in. Exhibit 1, big picture. Exhibit 3, zoomed in. We also have 2 other reports that we issue in the report, and I'll go over those in just a second as well. And then we have in the very back of the report the CFA and the findings and questions cost. I do want to point out that you all have about $13.2 million in federal funds here in the county between the county school system, social services, and Head Start. So that is a significant amount of federal funds. And as I kind of get to in a second, but always want to caution that with the political changes and the environments, something to monitor. Of that amount, almost $2 million was your ARPA funds, kind of one-time allotment of funds. Want to make sure you're considering those things in your budget, that those grants may be declining or going away, and make sure you're monitoring that at both the state and the federal level with the changes in politics. And so within the report, I mentioned that we issued several other reports. One of those is the federal guidance, uniform guidance report, which is the single audit. It used to be referred to A133. Last year we did have a finding in that report related to child nutrition cluster and properly reporting monthly claims of meals. That was corrected during 2025, and we did not have any findings noted in our federal testing among the programs. Those were clarified mostly based on Head Start was tested this year, as well as school nutrition and ARPA funds as well. So among all those testing, we were program testing, no items were noted, no findings in that report. However, we also issue a gas report, which speaks to the state compliance and auditing standards and general compliance matters. We do have 5 findings noted related to that finding. Several of these are similar to last year, or carryovers from last year, and they do take time to fix them, so that's not unusual. The first item is material weakness related to proposed audit adjustments. As I mentioned, you all have materially correct financial statements. It did require us to propose some material adjustments based on documentation you all have. Those adjustments are included in the back of the report if you have further questions on those. The majority of those are accrual related items, so bringing in the receivable to match the expense and kind of putting all those pieces back together, which kind of goes hand in hand with the finding number 3 here, that the school board had not been submitting reimbursement requests for federal grant programs in a timely manner. They actually have 27 months to submit the reimbursement request for the expense based on the grant award, but auditing standards do require you to get those funds back in timely as a function of how you all do accounting, and all Virginia governments do accounting. You want to get those monies back in so that the county's not loaning the school board the money between times. So when you have the expense, you want to get that reimbursement in soon to get those funds back to the county as soon as possible. So I want to point that out, but that was a recurring from the prior year. Another finding reported was the Treasurer's Office was working to catch up bank reconciliations. If you remember last year, we had a finding that they were all very delayed. This year, the finding is more specifically related to the school health insurance bank account. The other accounts were caught up and corrected during the audit. So during 2025, they were fixed. The school health insurance account, I believe, talking to the school board, there's been some changes in that process after this audit. Hopefully to make that process easier and help you all catch up during 2026. But there was a lot of transactions and that account was not reconciled until we had reconciled during the audit process. The finding number 4 and 5 are related to Virginia non-compliance. The Head Start Department did not have a budget appropriated by this board. That is a technical matter that you all did not receive it from the school board to review it and appropriate it. So those funds were not in compliance because they were not appropriated. I do want to clarify that that budget was given to the school board and approved at the school board level. It just did not come to here, did not make it forward. So that's the step that was missing, and that's a technical matter, but the funds were included in the audit. The funds were not discovered in the audit process. They were just not appropriated by this board.
So it needs to be a line item in the next budget.
Generally, the school board should have several funds that they provide to you to approve, being the school operating fund, the school cafeteria, the school health insurance fund, and the Head Start fund should also be included in those items for you all to approve annually.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. The 5th finding, the school board overspent the appropriations of the board of supervisors. So you all set an amount for total appropriations, which includes your local contribution. It also includes the state and federal funds. Based on that, they did overspend the amount of money that they were allotted. So that requires some improvements to the process to make sure they're monitoring their budget. If they expect to need to spend more money than they told you initially, they should come back and ask for more appropriations periodically. That has happened frequently, a lot with the ARPA funds, the ESSER funds, and the increased grant funding the school boards have received in the past couple of years. That was a common issue among the localities, but it is something that you all should have a process in place to prevent. So hopefully the school board can put a place in to monitor appropriations and prevent that going forward. One item I did note, I talked with Mr. Ferguson during the exit conference. There's a lot of various people handling the individual grants at the school board. I do think a school finance director would be a beneficial position to monitor the budget overall, to monitor getting those grants back in timely, and kind of review those in total. So I do think that would be an implemented procedure that could help alleviate some of these issues. There are various people that would kind of have to tie it together to make sure that on the whole, the school board is in a good spot. So those are the 5 findings reported in the back of the report that are the most material items. We also issued a separate recommendation letter, which is in the back of this report as well. I don't plan to go over those in detail, but I'm happy to take questions on them as well. So those are the findings in the report, and I'll go over some high-level numbers here as well. So I mentioned Exhibit 1 is big picture. This is the full accrual basis of accounting, so it includes everything the county has, school board has, less all the debt, long-term debt, and that does include the accounting items debt. That's your net pension liability and your compensated absences and things that are not necessarily bonded debt. So big picture. And then towards the bottom, the net position is the net worth. If you were a business, that would be your net worth. Broken into various categories include net investment and capital assets, restricted and unrestricted. Unrestricted is what you had to work with at the end of the year there. So about $2 million. Total net position about $13.5 million. And of that, a large portion, $10 million, is net investment and capital assets. That's buildings, infrastructure, vehicles, all those items like that, less the related debt to acquire those items. So that's the net value of those items that you can't necessarily spend because it's in material things. For a current ratio of just over 3, so on a big picture, you're in pretty good shape. I think bank would want you to be over 1, so you're over 3. So on a big picture, you're in pretty good shape. Moving to the general fund, and this is the fund basis, so this is more cash basis plus short-term receivables, less short-term payables, kind of zoomed in, more aligned with your budget process. You'll see revenues, property taxes, which include both real estate and personal property taxes, have grown about 7% per year in this 5-year trend, but total revenues have grown just under 10%. A large portion of that being your intergovernmental revenues, which is those state and federal funds, growing about 9% per year over this 5-year trend. A large increase, $600,000 or so in 25 alone. Again, want to mention that we do expect a decrease in that available funding, so we want to make sure that your budget is more self-sufficient in 1 year. So, on the expenditure side, you can see by function the annual increases or decreases of that. You'll see administration declined at 10%, almost 10% per year during that time frame. Education did have a significant increase this year. This formula is driven based on the current year and the prior 5 years. So the 25 you all used, the school board used carryover funds. So that was part of it, as well as the overspending, the appropriation part of it, to have the increase that you see there, 25% per year. So a large portion of that increase is in the last little bit there. Overall, total expenditures increased about 10% per year. Also, did note that in 2025, the school board did have a lot of capital projects, so it's not just ongoing expenses. They did have about $3 million, I noted, in HVAC and roof improvements. So some of those are grant funded, but they're not necessarily all ongoing. There were some one-time expenses in there as well. But so expenses are outpacing revenues barely, but it's close. So something to monitor as you're making budgets. Again, going back to the general fund revenues, a picture here to kind of give you a comparison of the current year and the prior year, where the funds are coming from. And again, you can see pretty comparable, about 42%, 41% property taxes, which is that real estate and personal property. A little bit of a side note, some localities have found a one-time windfall of funds by 1 to twice a year billing with taxes, so that's something to consider if you are looking to help get that fund balance back in a one-time. It's not ongoing, but it does pull some funds forward in your accounting process. So just one thing to note there, that's a pretty common practice as well. General fund operating and debt expenditures, again, this is comparison to last year. You'll see the increase in education, 35% of your overall budget this year compared to 28% in the prior year, 24% in public safety compared to 27% in the prior year. So I talked about the fund balance, and I mentioned in big picture you all were doing okay with a current ratio of over 3. This is the county reserves on a much more zoomed in general fund modified accrual basis of accounting. The GFOA is a national organization that has some recommended policies and some general guidelines out there for accounting for governments, and they recommend that you all have 2 months or 16.67% of minimum unassigned fund balance. That is a very general number. There's a lot of things that go into that. Some places that have twice a year collections would have a lot of collections in June. That would inflate those numbers. If you all have a lot of funds in your unassigned fund that you plan to use for capital, that would also impact that because it's not in a capital fund. So there are some pieces to this. Some localities have a bigger tax base and are able to generate revenues bigger than others. So a lot of pieces to it, but you all are below that amount. You have been below that amount, so that's not anything that has changed. But want to make sure you're looking at that and thinking about that when you're in your budget process. I don't think that you can get to 16.67% in a 1 year change either. So, but it's something to think about and monitor as you move forward. So, not dire straits, but also something to watch and think about. The county debt balances. So again, this is big picture, includes all of your debt. This is your bonded debt. This is your accounting liabilities. I tried to break them out by line item to kind of separate those items, but this is everything. It includes all the debt that the county and school board have, and has a comparison to the bottom for the state average. I don't have the 2025 amounts yet because the state cost comparative report is not available yet. It should be out soon, but based on the prior year, you're well below the state average, as you should be in Southwest Virginia. So that's good to see. I mentioned that those liabilities do include the net pension liability, which is an allocated liability from the Virginia retirement system. That is nothing that the county or school system has done wrong. You all pay, and the school board pays what they've been told to pay. That is an allocation from the state for the teacher pool. It is, you all have your own plan here, but it's a variance based on how they do with the investments they have allocated for you at VRS. It's a variance based on how long people work versus what they expected people to work. There's a lot of impacts in that. It's a very big estimate. But once GASB 68 was in play, we were required to report it, and so you all do report it at the recommended 6.75% discount rate. But you can certainly see the impact if they were to do better on your investments or worse on your investments with this slide. So I want to point out you are recording liability as required, but it is a big estimate. So as I mentioned, you all did implement GASB 101 for compensated absences. That was in 2025. In 2026, you have some upcoming standards. Statement 103 for financial reporting model will have some impacts for you all. One of the larger impacts is the budgetary schedules do require a third column. So you currently report original budget, final budget, and actual, and then a variance column. It will now require a original budget, a final budget, and a changes in the budget column, and then the actual and the variance, and also some RSI regarding changes to that budget. So something to consider and maybe start to gather. The more material changes to your budget, the bigger supplemental appropriations and things like that will be disclosed in the report and going years. So having those items pulled together for the audit process would be a good thing to have. There's also some other items regarding disclosure of capital assets, and I do think there could be some minimal changes there for you all, but nothing that will be very significant. So overall, that's the audit. The audit process, we start with a secure portal we send to the staff, the school board, and social services and everybody, and they send a lot of the information back to us through the secure portal. Then we visit on site with a more detailed plan of action and do interviews and things like that on site. And then we do this process again in the fall to wrap up the audit, and then kind of work through email to wrap up. And I do want to appreciate all of the groups for sending us information timely, including the School Board of Services County. Everybody was great to work with in that process. So the process went really well. The financial statements, big picture, are in pretty good shape. Fund basis, I'm going to kind of watch that budget to make sure that you've got a balanced budget, or maybe look to start building that reserve a little bit. And then we had the 5 noted findings, and a lot of those are repeats that I think there's improvements in process. They may take some time, and other things are items to watch. So with that, that's all I really had planned to discuss, but I'm happy to take questions.
In comparison maybe to other counties that y'all have audited, you said it looked all right, but like, are we the top half, the bottom half, like average, or where would you say we're at?
Sure, and are you speaking to financially or compliance-wise or?
Both.
Both, okay. Financially, your percentages are lower than a lot of localities I work with as far as that general fund balance goes. A lot of them do have twice-year collections, which, as I mentioned, you kind of think about your paycheck. If you're measuring yourself on Saturday, you get paid on Friday. Hopefully, that's a little bit more in the bank account than it is if you're not. So that's one way of looking at that. They might have the advantage there as well as, but they do have higher percentages and higher there. Also, a function of that is your total operating expenditures. The school board spending those on capital projects could increase that. So hopefully, that's not an ongoing amount they have going on as well. The school board has some issues with the funding of the health insurance fund and the cafeteria fund. Those are items that are a little bit concerning that I don't see everywhere. I have seen a decline in the school nutrition funds in general. For a while they were on the uptick, and a lot of places were having almost too much money. There are rules that they cannot have more than 3 months of funds there. So it's kind of a tough balance for the school nutritionists. They cannot have too much money and also shouldn't have no money. So that's one thing to watch, but yeah, so you're a little lower on the financial side. Compliance, this is more findings than I generally have, but I do have a few localities that have similar amount of findings.
Is there anything that we should, in particular, be worried about that is an emergency situation that opens us up to additional liability?
No, I don't know of anything. As you all discussed, monitoring what happens in Richmond with the budget, and there's a lot of significant talks of cutting taxes and increasing taxes, and those could have impacts on you all. So it's kind of monitoring those. The personal property tax being a very significant one. That is a large funding source for the county, and if the impact to that would significantly impact you all's budget. So that's something to watch. But as far as I don't see anything that's significant liability that's out there, just continuing to implement processes to improve on these financial statements and how we get to compliance of reimbursement grants.
You mentioned a school finance director. Is that a necessity as you see it at this point?
Necessity is challenging because you all currently have worked without one. My understanding is the superintendent's kind of oversee the process you all have now. You all do have central accounting with the county, and the processing of a lot of the bills and things happen to the county staff here, which is not necessarily a problem. It's more of a monitoring the budget, making sure that they're within the funds you all have allowed for them. If they get a new grant, that they come to you all and say, hey, we have this new grant and we're going to need appropriation for that. Kind of monitoring that process looking forward, instead of chasing on the back end.
And sorry, the last question for me, I know everybody else has got questions, but that 16.67 fund balance, percentage-wise, does that affect the county's credit at all? What is is it just a good idea to have that, or is that something that will materially hurt us in the long run?
That's a good question. So I give a lot of these presentations and I get a lot of how we're doing financially. And if I don't have some sort of number bar, then I'm just hypothetically throwing a letter grade out there. So that does give me a bar. Does it impact your credit rating? Not necessarily. They have different metrics that they use. As far as I know, the fund balance versus expenditures is one of the metrics. There are also revenues versus fund balance and things like that they consider as well for your credit rating, but not directly is the answer to the credit rating. But yeah, it could be. So.
All right, sorry, I hogged all the questions, but anybody else got anything?
I do have some questions. You recommended 16.67 reserve. What is our reserve actually?
I believe it was at around 9%.
So you're thinking multiple years to get it back to that?
Correct. I think that it would be quite a challenge to remedy that in 1 year, and not that you're in dire situation because you've been in this spot for a while, but you want to be able to have 2 months of reserves based on the GFOA's recommendation.
I think you discouraged prepayment by the school system. If you want to touch on that.
Sure. I don't know that we had that management recommendation in this year's report. But in the prior year report, we did refer to, there was some prepayment for goods and services at the school board level. You really don't want to prepay and really can't prepay for things. I think this, I can't remember what that specifically was referring to, but there certainly could be a situation where you prepay for something and then you don't get it, the company goes out of business. It's just not a risk that you need to take. So the code really wants you to make sure that you receive the goods before you pay for them, aside for insurance and things that you pay right before the period starts. But when you're receiving goods and services, you want to make sure that you're getting the items and paying for them in a similar time frame.
To that end, since it wasn't in this year's report, does that mean there wasn't material finding?
For the prepaid items, we did not notice that in the report this year. I believe it. And I do think that, talking to superintendent now, came back to me that I think that was more of a practice that they had in place because of space, storage space, where they had bought, I think it was paper or toiletries or things like that, and it was a matter of paying for them in the budget because they had the funds in that year, and didn't have the space to store them, so they had not received them, and so that was a prepaid item. But you want to make sure you're getting the items on site and have access to them if you're paying for them.
Unused school rollover funds, does it have to be approved by this board?
It does. Generally, this is a little bit of a challenging question, but yes, usually the board will approve carryover funds. Some boards will have a process that if the school board has $2 million in savings, they get to keep 10% of that in a capital fund, a required capital fund that the board would keep, the board supervisor would keep, and then they get submit reimbursement requests. So some of that goes into a different account essentially. Some places it's just automatically this is what they have left, and the board will approve it the next July, and that's kind of a management matter on how that's approved. But to expend those funds, they are required to be reappropriated. That's the question.
As you know, the county's responsible for a portion of the school budget. And we've had questions on what impact we have on the school budget. It's kind of a broad question, but do you have any ideas, comments on that?
Yeah, I don't. How you all work with the school board on their budget varies from county to county, but in total, you all do set the amount of money they can spend. So that's really the top level. They're not supposed to go beyond what you all have appropriated, and under that, I think it's kind of more of a management level on how you all work with them on what they spend.
I think you said the Head Start program has been cleaned up with the school system, so you don't have any concerns.
Yes, so when we took over the audit for 2024's audit, the timing was delayed on the audit process, and this was something we noted in that audit, that it had not been technically budgeted by the Board of Supervisors, but you all had already done the 2025 budget at that point. So my understanding is that Head Start budget was included in the 2026 budget, and so that should be removed from a finding in the next year. Specifically, we did do a program audit as part of our single audit testing on Head Start in 2025 and did not have any compliance items that we noted.
Something that Ms. Power spoke earlier, but she had contacted the state, and reconciliation deadline of compliance, this goes back to 24, I believe, requires local officials to notify APA if locality's audit is delayed and financial reports are submitted by December 15th. Scott County had not notified APR of the delay on January 27th, and that could possibly lead to February comparative report information on all counties not reporting, and that would include Scott County. Do you have any comments on that?
A lot of counties are getting farther and farther behind. When I started, we were around GASB 34, so that's 18 years ago or so. That does the governing body for accounting standards. We're just now at 103, so in 18 years we've implemented that many standards. GASB expects the localities to be experts in these accounting standards, and that becomes challenging for localities to do that. So it is getting harder and harder to stay caught up with the audits. You all did make the 2025 or the February for this report, so you all will be in the first release of the comparative cost report for 2025 when it comes out soon. You did not make it an initial version in 2024's report, but you did make it in an amended version. There is a requirement, as you mentioned, that if the report's not complete by 12/15, you all put a note on your website that is delayed and provide the reason for that. I believe that you all may have sent it to the Auditor of Public Accounts, but it may not have been on your website, so that might be where that came from.
I think our earlier discussion, you said you work with other counties that have bordering other states and school systems. Of course, we've had quite a bit of discussion here about Tennessee students and the composite index. If we take in, or if we charge tuition, which we don't now for Tennessee students, how would that affect our composite index, and can those funds stay within the school system or the county?
Yeah, my understanding, it's a really good question. My understanding is that yes, those funds will stay within the school system. They are considered locally generated funds, so it could impact the local effort requirements and the calculations there. But I think that it would not have a significant impact on you all to do that. But I can certainly do a little research and get back to you with a better response.
As far as the composite index?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Again, my contact's on the front of that if you have questions. Okay. It's a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Moving on, Mr. Buddy Hill. With the High Knob Music Festival.
Good morning, and thank you for letting me come and present an update on the High Knob Music Festival and what we're doing and how we feel that is helping Wise County and Scott County working together in conjunction with Big Stone Gap and the City of Norton in supporting this. We feel like we pretty well know, we don't know to what extent, but we feel like what we're doing helps to drive tourism, which is a goal that I don't hear being talked about a lot in recent years, I guess, last few years. Times have gotten pretty hard for Wise and Scott County both. I know Wise County, of course, and a lot of people from Scott County worked in Wise County with the coal mining operations and so forth. We lost a lot of population. We lost a lot of high-paying jobs, and we've turned our focus to trying to drive tourism. And I'm talking with the four entities I mentioned, Wise and Scott and Big Stone Gap and Norton. If we're going to drive tourism, we have to have more than one or two or three things going on in our region. And the one thing that we're doing is the High Knob Music Festival. And this is a grassroots group, and you all know it pretty well by now because I try to come each year and give you an update. But we're in our 12th year, and we're 100% volunteer. We charge nothing for anyone to attend the festival. We're unique in that we not only allow people to bring a cooler with their soft drinks and sandwiches and snacks, whatever they want, but we encourage that because we realize that, and today, I know you all must be aware as I am, if you two people take two kids out to eat or something like that, you better have a $100 bill in your pocket because the time you pay the tip and all that, you're going to be $50 to $75 even if it's not an expensive place to go. So we're providing an all-day festival with good, clean entertainment. This is a free, family-friendly, no alcohol, no drugs allowed festival. We work in conjunction with Mountain Empire Older Citizens, and you may be familiar with where J. I. Burton High School is. The Mountain Empire Older Citizens buses run from that point up on the mountain all day long till the festival is finished, so that people can drive just to Norton and not have to spend their time and gas going up there. And you have to pay a $5 parking fee, which is a Forest Service fee, a parking fee to get into a recreation area. That's not us. Festival is totally free from us. But you know, it's an opportunity to get families out into the mountains. We have the most beautiful mountains around. I've heard it described as the Appalachian rainforest. And you know, it's a great learning experience for kids. You know, they can walk around the lake, and there's all kinds of things that you can do besides the festival, but the music is going on all day long. Our group, as a fundraiser, sets up our tents and sell food at a very low price for those who don't want to carry a cooler and picnic basket. But at any rate, we're trying our best with this one festival to help drive tourism into the area, and I think we've been a success. We have somewhere around 2,000 people in the course of the day, and this is an estimate because we've never figured out how we could, since people come and go all day long. We don't know exactly how we can say exactly, but going by the MLC bus drivers and our own observation being on the scene all day long, we're seeing anywhere from 1,500 to 2,500, and so that's how I'm coming about estimating a couple thousand people. This year we will start our festival with Rolling Thunder patriotic program, which we always try to do. I think that's also good to have our kids and families out and know that there's a force, a military force that protects them, and that Rolling Thunder will do some sort of a flag program or whatever. So we think it's education. We think getting out in the air and in the forest and walking around and that kind of thing is healthy for mentally and physically. And so we're doing everything we can to make this something that families can come out and spend almost nothing, what little bit of gas they might buy to go to Norton and get on the bus. We also, the other thing that we have been doing for several years is bringing the young music students in to give them a stage to play on, a large stage at a fairly large festival. It's not Woodstock, but it's a fairly large festival. And so this year we will have the Wise Jams music program, and those classes are taught at the Southwest Virginia Museum and State Park. And also there's a group out of Wise, I think, and they kind of meld together to, for the Jams participants. We will also have Mountain Empire Community College older students up there this year, because we felt like, you know, that's important too. We don't want to forget about it. Mountain Empire teaches a lot of great music classes, and so I think anybody can come to those evening classes at Mountain Empire, but by and large it's people my age and retired and that kind of thing that come. And we thought it'd be a beautiful thing to have our older music students and our youngest music students on the stage at the same time. So there's another company, a small music teaching business called Knack Music, located in Big Stone Gap, and that lady will bring her music students in, and so each of those three will play 3 or 4 songs. We allot an hour for this program, and each of those groups will play 3 or 4 songs, whatever they've got worked up, and then the entire group, all 3 groups, will be together on the stage to play a couple of songs to end their part of the opening program. And so we also try to pay those students also, I'll say, a gratuity It's not a lot of money, but we pay them something because if we're going to also tag on to the music in this region being a draw for tourism, we're teaching our kids and we're putting them on a stage, and they're earning a little bit of money at this. And so they go away, they've got memories that they can tell about, when they were 9, they were on the stage at High Knob recreation area, and they played music and got paid for it, And so that's a large, we're just tagging on to the teaching programs that they have and adding the chance to get some experience actually being out in public playing and make a little bit of money. And we feed all of them. We're fixing food, and so all their lunches are paid for. So that's kind of my update, and I didn't want to. Do you all have the paperwork that in your packets? I think you do. I didn't want to just stand here and read this. So it gives a lot of corporate information on one page about how our organization works. We are a subcommittee. High Knob Music Festival Committee is a subcommittee of the High Knob Enhancement Corporation, and we feel like this is a great way to enhance High Knob. We also each year we go up to Forest Service. Things are hard. The Forest Service doesn't really have money available to do the mowing and cleaning and so forth. So our volunteer group gets together, and sometimes in years past we've had to pay someone because we didn't have enough participation. We're an older group, and we've got people with knee replacements, hip replacements, and everything. But if we can't do the work, and we always do some of it, but if we can't do all of the mowing and weed eating, we have to hire somebody to do that because Forest Service can't. But we are doing that, and we can't provide this free festival and try to promote tourism without support from Scott County, Wise County, Big Stone Gap, and the City of Norton. That's the 4 entities that are supporting us. So I understand that you all in Wise County both are in kind of a rough place. It's hard these days to manage the money and keep everyone, keep the things that you have to do. One of my neighbors there, he and I were discussing the fact that we realized you got to take care of your needs first, and then you may have a huge list of wants. And hopefully, in a good year, you can take care of your needs and have some money for wants, things that you really would like to do, but not necessarily the top priority. So if the board feels like this is a worthy effort that we're doing for the public, free, and again, none of us get paid. Everything that we do is free, and we'll be meeting Friday on the High Knob at the recreation area to discuss building a handicapped accessible observation platform, and you all have contributed some money in the past for that, and we've saved it up. We've saved it up, and we have $6,000 available to do this project, and we're going to try to do a lot of the labor with the contractor has agreed that if we can have people that will help carry boards and so forth, they'll take care of all the actual construction, building it according to code and all that kind of thing. But a lot of us will volunteer to come up and help do this so that we can build that observation deck just off of the parking lot, so that people who are handicapped and can't walk down the hill into the amphitheater can still come and observe. It looks right down on it will look right down on the stage. And so we're trying to think about that. That recreation area has been there since I think it opened in 1940, started building in 1937, and there's absolutely no ADA compliance, bathrooms or anything. So we always supply a handicapped accessible toilet as well as regular toilets. those things are super expensive. Like right now, and I've got a copy of my budget with me, but off the top of my head, we spend close to $1,000 during that day just for our portalets. I just signed the agreement for our liability insurance for that one day, and it's $550, but the insurance company gave us $100 off as a donation, so $450. We have to pay for the sheriff's department now. Years ago, just a few years ago, we didn't have to pay for the sheriff department to come up and send 2 deputies up to stay there with us all day. And in one of our meetings, we talked about it, and you know, we had just found out that we were going to have to pay for our sheriffs to be there, our deputies, and several in the group. We also pay A&A security out of Norton to come up and help control parking and traffic, and also with any security issues that may arise. But several people in our group said, well, do we really have to have the sheriff's department because we're paying A&A security? And I said, well, you know, I think we need to. We've got a fairly large group of people that are in and out of there all day long, and I don't want to deal with any kind of a situation. We've never had one, but I don't want that responsibility. And so the group agreed that we need them up there. So I could go on and on with our expenses. The bands, let's see, this is one. We'll spend somewhere around $6,000 for bands and for the professional sound system. And again, I won't bore you anymore with this, but if we don't get the money, it's not possible for us to continue no matter how much labor we put into it and so forth. So I realize everything's very difficult, and if you all can't support us, I realize that too. If you can see your way to do that, we would be blessed by it. So thank you again for letting me speak, and I'll take any questions that anyone may have to ask me.
Any questions from anybody? I think we're good on the question. What did we give anything last year? What did we give?
I think it's historically been right around $1,000.
Yes.
For contingency.
Yeah.
And currently the board contingency sets at $29,730. So.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we donate $1,000 to this organization.
Mr. Briggs makes a motion that we give $1,000 to the High Knob Music Festival. Out of board contingency?
Yes.
Sorry. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Castile seconds. Everybody in favor, vote by way of saying aye. Looks like it passed. We'll send you the check.
Thank you, and we really do appreciate that. We have built this from the ground up. From I think the first festival was in 2016, and I was there and played music, and I had my granddaughter. She was just starting. She hadn't started really playing music yet, but she was singing with me, and we were going to open mic programs and program there at the Southwest Virginia Museum. And my daughter was there, and there was another 2 more musicians, and a handful of people from the campground, and I'm going to say 14 or 15 people. And in 12 years, we have taken that, and nobody got paid. The next year, about the same thing. 2016, we had actually had a fairly large festival in which we paid some people to come and play, and but we built it, And we built it because you all are willing to believe that this is good for our region, because we draw people from out of state also. But this is going to allow us to continue. And I thank you so very much from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you all for continuing to put this on.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, moving right along, folks from Goodwill.
We're not quite at lunch, so it's good morning. Appreciate you, Chairman and Board, for having us here. My name's Darrell Shear. I'm the Director of Business Development for Goodwill Industries, Teneva, here in Kingsport. This is Jamie Jarvis. She's our Director of Donated Goods.
Acquisition Director, yes.
Acquisitions.
Think you'd know that by
Well,
now.
I should. But we're here today to talk to you a little bit about Goodwill and who we are. I understand that this is the original spot where Goodwill started here in Southwest Virginia and the Northeast Tennessee region, right here in Gate City with Miss Anita Steiner. I come to find out there's a number of you that probably know as much about Goodwill as I do or more. So my goal here today is to help you kind of know where we're at today and talk, hope that you learn something and you take 2 or 3 things away. So who is Goodwill? Goodwill is a social enterprise that provides employment services to those in need. Mrs. Steiner knew that. She opened up here in 1972 to empower people and help strengthen communities.
Thank you, Ryan. Click for.
Not the middle button, the one on the right.
On the right. Okay. Thank you. And so how does Goodwill's model work? Well, this model is 126 years old. It started back with Edgar Helms back in 1902 when he decided to help the poor and unemployed in Boston. And he went out and collected donations. He knew that if he could bring the donations back, they had something that they could repair, that it was something that could give them purpose and hope, and they could sell those things, they could make a wage, and they could support their families, and that helped better the community. We're retail with purpose. I just told you kind of why we do that, but the other purpose for our retail is we're one of the original recyclers. We take household goods, textiles, and other recyclables, and we use that to provide jobs. Those jobs divert things from the landfill. And with that, we generate revenue that we can put back into our mission to support job skills and other trainings. So what do we do? Job training, workforce development, support individuals facing barriers to employment, retail donations and operations that create jobs. We not only have a retail location, we have a transportation team, and we have attended donation centers that are spread around the 17 counties in Southwest Virginia and Northeast Tennessee. Career job coaching and community partnerships. One of the community partnerships that we have with you guys is we work closely with Gate City High School and their special needs department, and they come to our distribution center down in Kingsport, and they learn job skills that hopefully they can take and transfer to a job after high school. So that's exciting. The people we serve, these are our target people, but we serve anyone with barriers to employment. People with disabilities, senior citizens, people that need second chances and have been involved with the law, veterans. We're getting ready to have in the middle of March a Veterans Fair in Gray. We understand that if someone gains employment and can regain their dignity, they provides them purpose. Families get stronger, communities get stronger, and we can support more within the community by bringing that to the workforce level. partnerships in the communities. What we as Goodwill want to do is we want to partner with you. We don't want to just be a attended donation center in your community. We want to partner with you, whether that be through the high school where we support the kids and have them come and see us and give them job skills for the future, working with workforce development, whatever we need to do to help support you in those things that you need support in, we want to be involved and help you. One of the things that we do within this community, you may or may not be aware of, is that we sponsor the athletic events at Gate City High School. So in the fall or in the winter, you might be watching a game, you can see a Goodwill banner. We want to be a part of your community. We're also a sustainable Goodwill, and that started from origination when Goodwill started. They were taking repurposed items, they were working on them, making them better to be able to sold in stores. We do that today. We also have a multiple other organizations that help us. So if it doesn't sell in the store and it comes back to our central district warehouse, we're able to take those, package them, and send them to recyclers that we partner with. One of the major things we've done in the last couple of years is we've ramped up our cardboard operation. This is something that's pretty near and dear to my heart. About 2.5 years ago, Domtar came to us. They said, Goodwill, we'd like you to partner with us. We'd like you to get out in the community, aggregate all the cardboard within the community, and bell it for us and send it to us where we can recycle it and create our new liner board and go to market. So we took them on. We went to Eastman. We asked for their support. Eastman partnered with us. Waste Management partnered with us. They bring us all their cardboard. We've gone out and talked to other businesses in the community. We've asked them to bring us their cardboard. We went out and purchased a brand new horizontal baler that'll do up to 400 to 600 tons a month to help generate and keep that moving forward. With that, we're continuing to look into the communities that we serve for support and how we can help you with a solution that you might need. One of the solutions that Mr. Dingus and I have talked about is a textile bin to put at your convenience centers. We're looking at doing that throughout our region. We would love to help you with that, and if it's at a convenience center, we're already a textile recycler. A lot of times people think if I've got a textile or some kind of linen that has holes or stains on it that it's not recyclable, and so they want to throw it in the landfill. We want to divert that. We can recycle those items. So we want those brought to us. So these textile bins are not only for donations, but they're also for donations that would otherwise go in the landfill. As you can see on my slide, we divert over 1 million pounds a month from the landfill. That's something that we strive every day to get better at. In 2024, we did just under 13 million pounds total. So we're excited about that. We know in 25 that we did a little over 14.5 million, but we're still working on our 2025 annual report, and that'll be out soon. What I'd like to do now is turn it over to Janie and let her talk to you about ways you can support Goodwill.
I don't think I can follow that. I don't have a slideshow. Basically, in my position, my job is to reach out to the communities in order to get donations in so that we can support everything that Daryl just went over. Mentioning some numbers, we have 10 retail stores now. We have 5 of those in Southwest Virginia and 5 of those in Northeast Tennessee. Couple in the books, hopefully opening soon. We have 17 ADCs. ADCs is an attended donation center. Those are like the trailer we have on Kane Street. Dr. Templeton, graciously enough, is leasing us that property. And with that being said, we have folks that are there 7 days a week. They're there from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Going to probably extend in the summer till 6. But my job, again, besides finding land to put those ADCs on the trailers, is the home pickups, and they mean a lot to me, and I schedule all of those. The reason they mean so much to me is because I'm on the phone all day long with folks that, and I'd say probably, if I had to guess, 60% of the people that call me are from out of state that have lived here, families still here. They need help. They need somebody to come and get mom and dad's stuff. We've got to put the house on the market, you know. So I'm on the phone, I get to know them, I have emails, we still chat, but that's very rewarding and it's very helpful to the community. So with that being said, word of mouth, that's basically how we promote that. So if you all ever have any need for, we do estate sales, as far as picking up, we do clean outs for homes, offices that are moving or closing. So our boundaries are not small. We have very little that we don't take because of what Daryl said with our recycling processes that we do. So with that being said, that's pretty much covers what we do, unless you'll have any questions.
Any questions? Well, I would like to add that on the back, you've got 3 different flyers that tell you our mission, vision, and values, all of our mission services, as well as our 2024 annual report, where it shows you that we serve 3,700 plus individuals within the region.
I did have a question about the collection boxes.
Yes.
You're wanting to add them to our facilities, is that correct?
So, yes, sir, it is. We'd like to start with one. I believe you mentioned, Bill, that it would be Yuma.
Yuma maybe, yeah.
Yuma maybe. Start there, kind of both of us see how that goes, and then and go from there.
And we do have a thrift store that we are picking up from in this area as well, that we do once a month. So we are, again, with the school sponsorships and all of that, and with Daryl's efforts, you know, just trying to spread our love into this community a little bit more, if you will.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Then everybody's back.
I think so. Authorize Joshua.
All right. So in order to do that, we'll need to have an MOU with Goodwill, and we'll need to authorize Mr. Wilson to sign that. They don't have microphone to pick it down. So do I hear a motion for an MOU and allow the county administrator to sign said MOU?
I'll make that motion.
All right. Michelle makes that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Is that in 10 seconds? All right. All in favor, vote by way of saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That was the easiest yes of the day. I always want to keep stuff out of the landfill, out the trash out. All right, we've got a few resolutions here. Sally, do you want to walk us through those, or Ms. Addington? Do you want
I'll do the first one, for sure. So the first resolution that that we've got in our packet, I hope you've all had a chance and opportunity to read through that. I've got a little something here I'm going to read concerning that. So they say that in a democracy that the voters are supposed to choose their politicians. But right now in Richmond, some politicians are trying to flip the script so that they can choose their voters. I'm here today not just as your supervisor, but as a fellow citizen of Scott County who refuses to watch our voice be silenced by a partisan grab. Just 4 years ago, Virginia voted overwhelmingly to take redistricting out of the hands of the politicians and give it to an independent commission. We wanted fairness, we wanted transparency, but apparently fairness only matters to Democrats in Richmond when they're winning. So now they are pushing a referendum for April the 21st that would temporarily tear up our Constitution. They want to bypass the independent commission and let the General Assembly, which they control, redraw our congressional maps mid-decade. They claim it's about restoring fairness, but I'm going to call it what it is. It's an attempt to rig these midterm elections coming up in '26. And it could turn a competitive 6-5 map into a 10-1 Democratic stronghold. So what does that mean for Scott County? And Southwest Virginia, it means that they want to pack our conservative voice from the mountains to the coast into one sacrificial district while cracking the rest of our communities apart. They want to dilute the rural values we hold dear and our commitment to faith, family, and hard work by lumping us in with Northern Virginia suburbs that don't understand our way of life. They are just trying to redraw the lines on a map. I feel they're trying to draw us out of the conversation. So we won't be a bystander to this disenfranchisement, is what I've called it. To that end, I've asked Ms. Kegley to draft us a resolution that declares our absolute opposition to the mid-decade power grab and the erosion of our constitutional rights. And I hope you'll vote with me on this resolution to send this to Richmond, to send a message that Scott County will not sit idly by while our representation is carved up. Our vote is not a pawn, and our unified voice should be heard. So I'm going to read the resolution, if that's okay. Is that okay?
That's full.
So it's a resolution opposing congressional districting that dilutes rural and conservative representation. Whereas in 2020, a constitutional amendment was approved by the voters of Virginia creating the Virginia Redistricting Commission, also known as Article 2, Section 6A of the Constitution of Virginia. And whereas the Virginia Redistricting Commission was established to convene in 2020 and every 10 years thereafter for the purpose of establishing districts for the U.S. House of Representatives, the Senate of Virginia, and the Virginia House of Delegates, pursuant to Article 2, Section 6 of the Constitution of Virginia. And whereas when proposed, the said amendment to the Constitution of Virginia received broad majority support across the Commonwealth of Virginia, with 2,287,091 Virginians voting in favor of the measure, including 6,580 Scott County voters. And whereas the Virginia Redistricting Commission successfully put an end to partisan gerrymandering of the Virginia legislative districts for the U.S. House of Representatives, the Senate of Virginia, and the Virginia House of Delegates, thus creating compact and contiguous districts. And whereas the Virginia Assembly called for a special session during the last week of October of 2025 to propose a constitutional amendment that would amend Article 2, Section 6A of the Constitution of Virginia by allowing the General Assembly to redraw the congressional districts contrary to the goals of the Virginia Redistricting Commission. And whereas congressional redistricting has significant consequences for the ability of communities to elect representatives who understand and reflect their values, priorities, and regional needs. And whereas Scott County is part of a distinct rural region of Southwest Virginia whose economic, cultural, and political interests differ substantially from those of urban and suburban areas of the Commonwealth. And whereas proposed congressional redistricting plans have raised concerns that rural conservative communities may be divided, consolidated, or otherwise reconfigured in ways that diminish their political influence and weaken their representation in the U.S. House of Representatives. And whereas the Board of Supervisors believes that fair representation requires congressional districts that respect regional integrity, preserve rural communities, preserve rural and conservative voices, and avoid politically motivated manipulation of district boundaries. This is now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors of Scott County, Virginia, that the county formally opposes any congressional redistricting plan that dilutes the representation of rural conservative communities, divides natural regions, or undermines the ability of Virginia to elect members of Congress who reflect the values and interests of its citizens. Be it therefore resolved that the board encourages other counties and localities across Virginia to join in expressing a unified opposition to any redistricting plan that threatens the political voice of rural conservative Virginians. Be it therefore resolved that copies of this resolution shall be transmitted to the governor, the members of the General Assembly representing Scott County, and the Virginia Supreme Court on this date. That's all. I'll ask for I'd like to make the motion that we approve this resolution.
Do I have a second?